Come what may, bring it on. I'm gonna love it.
Welcome to LDS Unmarried Life. This is a podcast for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who find themselves single either because they're divorced, widowed, or not yet married. And you can find this podcast on AnnetteTalks.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and YouTube. So I'm all over the place now. Today I am joined by Jim Jacobs. Say hello, Jim.
Hi, everybody.
If you've been listening to my podcast, you know that I've talked to Jim before, and we did an episode on depression.
Yes.
And I thought it was really helpful. And so today I thought we could talk about dating coaching. I don't even know how you say that. Date coaching?
Dating coaching is good. Or
Dating
relationship coaching.
All right. And so I wanted to talk about whether people need a dating coach or not, and what date coaches offer, because I know you do that. So let's start out with you telling us what your credentials are, and then we'll go into the process of what that means.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to be with you again. My name is Jim Jacobs. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I do provide counseling to individuals and families and relationships. I also do coaching, both professional and personal coaching for people who are trying to achieve goals. And then in the relationship coaching I do, which it would include singles who are seeking to find a partner. That is all about just trying to help people achieve their goals and accomplish the things that they need to. The advantage of dating coaching is that most of us go into dating without any kind of knowledge as to how do we do this. And in this online world that we live in, most of us feel uncomfortable marketing ourselves. Many of us, the most we have online is an Instagram or a Facebook feed, and now we're putting really personal stuff out there. We're seeking to recruit somebody, where our Facebook feeds are just kind of to share with our friends or other people. Now we're really trying to find somebody. We're trying to locate somebody and create something where they'll want to be interested in it. And then many of us don't know how to interact with people online and how to kind of convey messages that we want to. How do we exchange back and forth? How do you get a conversation started with somebody that you might be interested in? And then when we finally, if we do get that chance to go on a date with somebody, oftentimes we don't know how to do that. I don't know about you, but been 25 plus years since I had dated, and the world is much different since then, and
yes,
I'm much different. And so relationship coaching can help you from the very beginning to create a profile that's more likely to draw attention. And then how do you work through getting to know people, everywhere from the online getting to know each other to moving to maybe telephone or texting to moving then to in-person things. I mean, even now some people are doing video messaging back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
Or audio messages back and forth where
Marco
you're
Polo.
kind of having a conversation with each other through Marco Polo or Facebook or through Snapchat. And that's a new forum. And how do you communicate in a way to get to know people? If people are interested in learning more about that, you can go to jimrjacobs.com. That's jimrjacobs.com. You can also call me for a free consultation, 720-767-9757. That's 720-767-9757. Please also feel free to email to request a free consultation. The first visit's for free. I'll spend an hour with you, and we can just talk about what you're looking for, what you're struggling with, or whatever. And if you decide you like it, then we can continue. And if you decide you got enough in that first visit, that would be great too. Most people, when you're looking for dating coaching, don't need long term. It's usually just, let me help you get a profile set up, and then let me help you figure out how to communicate with people, and let me figure out how to help you to kind of actually do the meetup and get to know people. And so it's really fun. It's exciting. I've had about 20 years experience working with relationships and helping people be able to improve their relationships or find a relationship and have it be good.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to put your website and your phone number on this post at AnnetteTalks.com, but it's jimrjacobs.com, and it's 720-767-9757.
That's correct.
Okay. There's a lot of sevens in there.
And that's on the website, as well as my email address, or you can contact me through the website or subscribe on there as well.
All right. So, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do this is because I have been hearing recently from so many people that have dating coaches that I thought, I didn't even know this was a thing. All of a sudden, It seems like everybody and their dog has a dating coach. And at first I thought that was kind of silly, but the more I have my own experiences trying to do this whole thing, I can see the value in it, because there's so much to be frustrated about.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm going to speak on the women's side, and just from the women that I've talked to and some of the things that I've experienced that can be just to the point, it gets you to the point where you're like, is this worth it?
Yeah.
I am not successful. I don't want to do this anymore. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about some of that, and then the things that you would do to help people in this situation.
Sure.
And so from the female perspective, well, first of all, I want to ask you this, because we podcasted last weekend with a group, and the question was, should women ask men out?
It's a great question.
And I have to tell you that consensus, it was interesting, because it was, I was about 2/3 male and 1/3 female at this. So if you didn't listen to this episode, go back and listen. It was episode 18.
Yeah, good
but
stuff.
The women all pretty much said no, and the men pretty much all said yes.
Yes.
Which was, is that not surprising to you?
No, not at all. But in the world of online communication, I think women are going to have to step into that role. If you're interested in somebody, you have to get comfortable with learning how to reach out, because men are just as scared as women to make that first move, whether it be online or in person. And so I think we live in a new world, and maybe 25 years ago I would have said, nah, probably not. But now I think women have to become more comfortable with that. But we got to learn how to do that. Like, how do we approach that? Either a man approaching a woman or a woman approaching a man to maybe have more success or be likely to have sex.
All right, so you're disappointing me right now, Jim.
Because you didn't want to hear that, right?
No, because I think man is the natural hunter and woman is the natural hunted.
And that's probably still generally true, but the online world has changed that.
Yeah.
And if we want interactions to happen, we've got to take a step, whether we're male or female. We've got to take initiative. And I would say, we haven't gone into this yet, but as a male interacting in online dating kind of situations, it gets more frustrating when you're trying to initiate something and you're getting not a very active response or whatever. And so we've got to increase our confidence to be able to find ways to interact with our personality online, and that includes women asking men for the next step or asking out, and men doing the same. So,
but isn't there a point where if a woman's initiating too much, that gets to be a little bit taking you aback a bit, I mean, isn't there it's almost like a double standard, because if a man's pursuing a woman, that's expected. But if a woman's pursuing a man, don't you feel a little uncomfortable? I mean, doesn't that make you...
Well, I think that's probably old information based on how we used to date. When we're interacting online, we are having the opportunity of potentially interacting with more people than we would have ever interacted 25 years ago with.
Yeah,
like true. When we dated beforehand, maybe it was somebody we saw at the singles ward, maybe it was someone we met at an activity, and we maybe had interaction with 2 or 3 people. Maybe we danced with, 4 members of the opposite sex that night, and one of them was one that we were maybe interested in. Whereas now you could conceivably have, hundreds of different interactions with people. And so that idea, some people, if a woman were to be forward, would go, a man would go, oh my gosh, I don't want that. But others would be okay with it. And so it's learning how to pace that, learning how to read the messages that you're getting and how we approach it. But I think it's more generalized to people. There are, 25 years ago, most men would have probably considered a woman forward and thought, I don't really like that. But now that movement almost needs to happen. If you want to be successful online, you've got to figure out how to be assertive and also convey your personality when you're online.
Interesting. All right, so that kind of leads me to, I think, what a lot of women feel, and maybe men feel this too, with frustration. You have reached out to many people. Like I won't usually ask a guy out or send a first email, but I'll send like a flirt, on Planet, like I'll like a picture, right? And so this happens a lot. I will like a picture, or on Mutual, I will swipe up, right? And then I'll get either no contact or very brief contact, or I'll get an email like once a week from someone.
Okay.
And it's like, if they're local, you're like, why are they not, asking. And now I'm thinking, am I supposed to ask this guy out? Because I feel a little silly doing that. I feel like if he wants to go out, he'll ask me. But apparently he's keeping it to email. And so I feel like a lot of us are in this place where we have all this contact, but no real movement forward, right? Or we have a lot of first dates, but no relationships. And so I guess, how do we change that? Is date coaching or dating? I don't know how to say it. Dating coaching. I'll say relationship coaching. Yeah. Does relationship coaching, can you help with that? Because I feel like so many of us feel stuck. All this interaction. Like I see people on Facebook all the time. I'm in groups all the time. I'm in these singles groups, or I'm flirting or talking with someone on Mutual. I'm talking with someone on Planet. I've got emails coming in, text messages coming in, and it doesn't go anywhere. And so you just feel like I'm gonna spend the rest of my life spinning my wheels with all these contacts and no relationships coming out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you being willing to share that frustration. I think the men share that same frustration. It's an interesting world online to interact with people, and the reality for most of us is if we want to date, if we want to find somebody, it's probably going to come from an online interaction. And certainly on the receiving end of that, I've sent out flirts and heard nothing, or sent a message and heard nothing. I think we've got to become more comfortable with that's the reality of that world. I think where relationship coaching could help with that is sometimes we get sucked into the format. We have to use Mutual, or we have to use Planet the way that it is. But we don't always know kind of what are the principles of how do you interact with somebody so that it'll produce that. I would say, as an outsider, first of all, we need to understand that the matching systems of those profiles, the online dating sites, are often kind of a flawed way of matching
They're terrible.
people. Like LDS singles, I mean, I'm not trying to talk bad about it, but we need to know that. LDS singles matches you by if you answered the same question. So if you said that you like basketball and the other person said they like basketball, then they gave you a percentage match with that. And that's not actually a very good way to match. And then interestingly, Planet seems to have a formula where if you click on somebody, like I think I looked at a profile on somebody from, Southern Utah or something like that. And then all of a sudden I started getting matches of other people in Southern Utah. Like I was really interested in Southern Utah. I was actually interested in a person. And then when we do these flirts and the the swipes and all of that kind of stuff, it's not really a meaningful interaction. No. It's kind of an ambiguous, like, what do you want? Are you interested in me? It may invite somebody to go look at your profile, but it's not really opening up an interaction to tell if this is a human being that you want to interact. So if you're going to do flirts, or if you're going to do swipes or likes or whatever kind of thing, you're really going to have to look at, first of all, your profile has to be top of the line. It has to be really something that people can connect with and see who you really are, and really get a feel. It has to create a feeling in the person that they want to see you. So first of all, I don't know if this is the same for guys and girls, but the pictures that you choose, my experience is that most guys, if they don't like the pictures that they see, they don't even read the text. And I'm not sure that girls don't do the same
well,
thing.
And I would also say that my experience is that even if guys like the pictures, they're still not always reading the text.
Correct.
Because one of the first lines in my profile is, I'm only looking for local guys. And yet I get all sorts of messages, or just little, hi, how's it going, from guys in other states.
Yeah.
And so I know for a fact they're just looking at me.
Or they didn't pay attention to that detail or whatever.
Oh, and I put it right up front, so I didn't have to sift through, because I don't want to have to keep telling guys, hey, I'm only looking for locals. Thanks, but I'm only looking for locals. And so I've gotten to the point where I just don't even bother. Because if they didn't bother to read the first line of my
it can be so very frustrating, because either your first impression is the flirt or the first message you send, or your first impression is they happen to find your profile and look at it. So at no point in this have you had any interaction with the person yet. And so we have to get around the fact that some people aren't going to read it. Some people are going to just judge it by the pictures. So we just have to get around that and the strategies that we would use. So in creating a profile, you've got to have somebody else help you create your profile. The advantage of having a relationship coach do that is that as you're feeling your frustration and all of that, you're going to get some guidance from someone who knows how people think, how relationships work, how people might that. You also may not have, the feedback may not as be hard to take if someone says, you shouldn't put that picture on your profile, or you shouldn't, that's probably not conveying the message that you want to send. Because the type of pictures that we choose really kind of just shape how much people are going to be interested, and you've got to have a hook to get them to your text. And then if you're not having somebody look at the text that you're writing, most of us, as we were talking before we started doing this, most of us kind of approach our profiles like we're looking for a job. And so we lead with all of our strengths. So we tell them how great we are, and tell them what we're doing, and tell them what we're good at and what we do on the weekend, and we share all of that kind of stuff, but we're not really setting up for a job interview, even though it always feels that way.
It does.
Or many times it does feel that way. I guess it doesn't always feel that way, but we kind of approach it that way, and then there's no vulnerability, there's no real sense of who you really are, how you think, how you feel, how you handle yourself, how you handle life, and so we often leave those kind of things out. So we've got this picture perfect profile that's all strength based, which is not bad, but if it doesn't include that other stuff. And so we've got to hook people in. And I think the flirts and all that stuff are the worst possible thing, because it's impersonal. It's definitely an online thing, and it doesn't convey anything about who you are, what you noticed about a person, how you think, how you believe, how you feel. And so flirts and swipes are really an ineffective way to really start an interaction with somebody.
I'm most impressed when a guy will message me with something that he saw on my profile.
Yes.
And he'll come out and he'll ask a question, or say, oh, I noticed this that you said on your profile, and then ask a question about it. And then a conversation starts. But right away I know, oh, okay, he read my profile, and now he's reaching out with an actual personal message, and not one of those little flirts that's, do you want to chat, or something silly like that. Because I think there was no time at all put into that. And I could be anybody.
But yet you said you're doing the same kind of thing.
Because I've always felt like the men should initiate. And so when I send a message or a flirt to someone, it's just because I want him to know I'm open to him communicating with me. It's kind of like me knocking on the door, and so he can open it and start a conversation.
Right. But a flirt is really interesting, like on Planet, and this is, I'm not trying to bash Planet, because I have found people I've really enjoyed interacting with on Planet. But the thing is the flirt is really Planet's way of trying to market themselves as, we've got something that's going to help you get somebody. But if you really think about it, you don't even know who you're flirting with. And so if we were at a singles activity and you saw somebody across the room that you thought was attractive, it'd be certainly appropriate to flirt a little bit with them, or maybe while you're dancing, kind of flirt a little bit with them. But here you're in this online world where what does a flirt mean, and what does that get into, versus what you said is pulling out something you saw from their profile that genuinely made you curious. You got to be authentic, and so if you weren't really curious about it, don't ask about it. But I remember getting the message that said, hey, you said you loved cooking on your profile. What are your favorite kind of meals to cook? And it started again a conversation or an interaction with somebody, and that's really got to be our goal, is starting an interaction with somebody. So coaching could help create that. Be cautious of using your family or your friends to kind of help you create your profile, because almost all of them are going to focus on your strengths. They're going to tell them that you did this, tell them that you did that.
Right.
A relationship coach, if they're any good, is going to tell you to put an experience on there, to put a story on there, put something vulnerable on there, put something that indicates who you really are and how you interact. And then they're going to tell you, when you exchange emails with somebody, or messages with somebody, or text messages with somebody, that you're also going to try to weave in your thoughts and your experiences, and you're going to have to open up and be more vulnerable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about doing that. That makes me think I need to go back and look at my own profile, because I think I do have a lot of strengths in there. I try to be a little funny, but maybe I need to put a little more personal story or experience or something.
That's something that really captures, if there's a story or an experience, that, you don't have that many words to put on there, but if there's a story or experience where you can capture the way you think, or how you celebrate life, or how you enjoy what you do,
right.
Even if it's a little bit embarrassing, if it's funny, if it really captures your personality. Like, I really struggled with, should I put on there, I'm kind of a tender-hearted kind of person, and my kids tease me that I cry really easily, and I thought, should I put that on there? And I'm like, well, anybody who really wants to get to know me is going to know that right away, so wow, that's a little bit scary to put on there. but yet I had interactions with people that appreciated hearing an example of that sensitivity that was impressive to somebody. So it's really digging a little bit deeper, and someone outside of your immediate friends and family may be able to help you do that. But we've all got to become more comfortable with really looking at it. Almost, you don't want to say marketing standpoint, but that's really what
it
dating,
is.
that's really what dating is its marketing standpoint, and we've got to put ourselves out there. It's not very vulnerable to click like or a flirt or something like that, but it's better to, even, we were talking earlier about many of us don't want to do something too formal or too structured, but yet some of those things give us the opportunity. When someone when on Planet, say for example, it says, you can choose which questions you want the person to answer. Like, if you're interested in somebody, the best thing you could do is answer one of those questions, because they said that's questions that they said they were interested in. And if you have also similar interest, if you can answer that question and then get a little personal in your answer. So don't just respond with 1, 2, 3, these are my 3 goals for my life, and just say, you quickly say your 3 goals. Tell a story. Be personal about it. Why is that important to you? How does that influence the way you live your life? What are you doing about it today? Maybe you could share a challenge that you're having with it after you've read their profile and what you know about them. So you've got to turn it into a personal interaction so that it can go better.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a lot of us just don't spend enough time with this. Like, we want to just send a flirt out and have somebody start messaging us, and then it goes from there. But that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
We have a lot of these, like I said, really brief interactions that go nowhere.
Yeah.
So it sounds like spending more time on someone's profile and getting to know them a little bit, and then messaging them with something from their profile, trying to get more personal, is a better way to get started.
Yeah, or also messaging from your own profile or your own experience. We know that vulnerability begets vulnerability, so if you're willing to put yourself out a little bit there, many people are willing to respond that way. And so we've got to figure out more ways. We've got to change our mindset. This is not showing up at a singles activity and having a dance with somebody and then getting a phone number and then having a phone call, on our landline with a cord, that runs down the hallway. I mean, it's not. We are in a new century. We are in a new time period, and we have got to become more comfortable. And it's a weird mix, because we're marketing ourselves, in quotes. You can't see that in a podcast, but we're marketing ourselves in quotes, and we're having to be vulnerable when we do that. You can have a Facebook profile and an Instagram profile, and it's never vulnerable. It's just the fake happy stuff that we do or whatever. But if you want to be successful at an online dating, you've got to have this mix of marketing plus who am I really? Who is behind that? Another thing that might be helpful to look at with the online interactions is, for some reason, we get some sort of timetable in our mind, and we don't remember. I was telling you about an interaction that I had, and I had this happen multiple times where I kind of felt pressured, kind of thing, and it was helpful for me to step back and go, okay, how long have I really known this person? And when you start looking at it, all we've ever done is exchange messages before. If we totaled up how long it took me to type those interactions and maybe how long it took her to type up those interactions, we had maybe known each other 5 virtual minutes. And when we really look at that, sometimes in our mind, because we're trying to figure out who this person is, we don't know who they are, we start adding all these interpretations and these thoughts of how come he's moving so slow, or she's not really interested in me, or whatever, versus kind of recognizing, okay, we've known each other for 5 virtual minutes. What should my expectations be?
Right.
And so before we attach an interpretation, like you were saying, you got a message from somebody that seemed very formal, seemed whatever, and then we talked about, well, he may be scared to death, based on the age that you said he was. This is maybe totally new to actually, like, he may have never typed a personal message to anybody before, and so we've got to be cautious and go, wait a minute, okay, how long have we known each other? 5 virtual minutes. So what can I realistically expect? This is 2 people who don't know each other very well, so let's spend some time getting to know each other. And if you find yourself getting wrapped up in thinking about this person, and why haven't they emailed me, or why haven't they whatever, remind yourself, put that on yourself a little bit and go, okay, I'm working a full-time job, and I've got my kids coming in and out of my home, and I'm trying to serve in my calling, and I'm trying to date a little bit and go to some of the singles activities or whatever. Maybe he's just really busy, and I've only known him for And if you could be, I've only known him for 5 virtual minutes, then you might say to yourself, well, what's that next step then? Maybe you've enjoyed the interactions, and maybe as a woman the step might be to say, wow, I really wish I could hear from you more because I've enjoyed our interactions. And then share something or ask a question or see if you can inquire a little bit more about what he said, so that you can find a way to connect some more. But we often get frustrated and go, nothing's happening. Well, when you've only known somebody for 5 virtual minutes, that would be like being at a singles activity and being there for 2 minutes and seeing a guy and going, dang, he hasn't come over here and said hi to me yet. Well, you've only been there for 2 minutes. You just saw each other from across the room. You would know, I've only known him for 2 minutes. Of course, he's not just going to walk over here and go, wow, my dreams have come true. Here you are. In the virtual world, it's that same kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the virtual thing is really hard. I have a fantasy of meeting a guy in person that I never met online. And then, we get to know each other and we start dating. But I'm afraid that'll stay fantasy because how many people do we meet in reality anyway?
Yeah.
We go to activities and you meet the same people you've already met
Yeah.
however many times. And so we're pretty limited
Yeah.
these days, especially if we're not in Utah where we can go to an activity where there's like 100 people.
Yeah.
So,
And maybe if you live in Utah or Idaho or whatever, maybe there is a larger pool of people to go from. I don't think it's a totally unrealistic fantasy, but then that involves putting yourself out there in another way. We're not talking about that today, but it means how are you going to put yourself out there to actually meet somebody? Do you need to do something different besides going to just the same singles activities over and over again with the same people? But that's also an assumption too, because there are new singles coming up. I don't know if that's sad to say or whatever, but it's reality that people are getting divorced or people have never been married or people move. And so the assumption is, should I go to that same old activity? It's just going to be the same old people. Well, that's kind of fortune telling. You don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
And the night that you don't go is the night someone came for their first time and you missed Prince Charming. So...
Yeah, no, there are new people cycling through,
Yeah.
or else most of us would have stopped a long time ago.
Yeah.
I knew a lady like that in one of my old wards that she said, oh, I stopped going 10 years ago. And I thought, do you still think it's the same people from 10 years ago? Because it's not.
Some of them might say it's possible.
There
Some
are
of them
a few,
might be the same, but yeah.
but for the most part, they are. And I have to keep reminding myself, people are getting married.
Yeah.
I do periodically see engagements
Yeah.
announced on Facebook and elsewhere. So I
Yeah.
know it is happening for
And
some
some of
people.
those people are meeting in your fantasy way. They are meeting in person at a dance or something. Otherwise, I don't think the church or others would even do them if they weren't actually helping get people together.
No, yeah, I know. I do know. I hear stories. I hear rumors.
Yeah, they're out there somewhere. There's
It
some truth
happens.
to them. Yeah.
So, but most of what we do is online these days. So you would help someone get their profile.
I could. Yeah.
Already
if
it
they want
sounds.
that. Yeah.
Already it sounds like there's stuff that I need to do on mine because I don't even think I filled out that part that says what questions should you
Yeah,
ask. I think I just totally blew by that. So I go back there and look at that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's say you got your profile all spiffy, and I just have to say to the guys that are listening again, and I've said this on other episodes, but with your pictures, first of all, no tank tops, no shirtless pictures. Please smile. At least one of the pictures should be, and I would say the profile really should be you smiling, or at least not frowning.
Yeah.
Not a bathroom mirror picture, and not a gym picture. I don't mean you, Jim.
Right. GYM. Right.
Right. No GYM pictures
Yeah.
because it's a turnoff. And every woman I've talked to says the same thing. Yuck. It just says it's almost like they're trying to brag. Like, look at me. Well, it's not attractive. I mean, women don't go into a gym to find Jim. And now this play on words is going to stick with me.
Yeah. No.
But
That's good.
I don't know how many times I get that email from Planet where it's got the 5 potential matches, which is a lot of it's the same over and over again.
Right.
But as soon as I see a guy frowning,
No shirt.
no shirt, in a tank top or whatever, I won't bother. I just don't bother. I got one guy that wanted to friend me on Facebook, and the first picture was a frown, and I thought, they can't all be frowns. So I looked, just out of curiosity, I went to his profile on Facebook, and it was all frowns.
Yeah, and you're looking for somebody who's going to make you laugh and smile. Right?
Yeah, and I thought, what is if you're not even smiling for pictures, that makes me think you're not a happy camper.
Yeah. So just to be fair, women need to hear that exact same thing.
Okay.
The fuzzy car selfie with you kind of not smiling and maybe at a bad angle in the dark, your hair might be messed up. That's probably not the best choice. I think women may be tempted to put in pictures of them immodestly dressed in a tank top or whatever. First question would be, are you actually a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Second of all, is then that same woman is probably going to get upset when a man sends her a message and says she's hot or something like that,
right.
And then you're complaining about a man who's objectifying you, but yet you put a profile of you in your swimsuit on your vacation in your bikini or whatever. So I think women need to understand that same thing. I mean, as I've looked at the profiles, it is a turnoff when you get those frown pictures, when you get those. Well, again, I don't know if most men are turned off by the pictures in the bikinis or whatever. I won't even respond to if someone has flirted with me or whatever. It's one of those profiles, because I'm thinking on an LDS website, it's either a scam or it's someone that's not within the values that I'm professing to practice. And so you can't post immodest pictures and then be upset when the man views you the same way maybe that a man looks at pornography or whatever.
Right.
And so women, you got to do the same thing. And if you need help looking at your pictures and how someone might be perceiving them, you need to ask a member of the opposite sex. You need to ask your friends or whatever, and just be cautious. You need to post pictures that are very much capturing who you are. And if you're a happy person, you need to post that. And if you're an unhappy person, you need to go get happy and then post pictures
right.
of you being happy.
Or if you're an unhappy person, feel free to leave the unhappy pictures up so we know you're not.
Yeah. And tell us that you're looking for somebody else who's unhappy. I mean,
right? Yeah, maybe two unhappy people need to get together.
So very candid feedback is, the pictures are so essential in this world that we live in. You gotta be clear.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? That takes me off on a little brief tangent here. But I had a friend that says she has a dating coach that does picture profiling. Is that something that you've ever done, or do you know what that is? Or
I think you could certainly hire a photographer, and you could go out and stage a hiking picture.
No. What I mean is.
Oh, she looks at it to determine who the person is.
Right. It's a male coach, and he looks at the picture and he says, "This person is going to be like this, or this person going to be like that." They profile the picture. Right?
I would be skeptical of anything like that, because I mean, maybe there's some merit or some science behind that, but really you should be choosing pictures that show and convey who you really are. It's probably someone just making money off of something that's a fringe science to say, if somebody judged me based on every photograph and they measured, what I was doing with my lips or whatever, maybe they could be accurate, but I would not feel very comfortable about that. And that gets us this maybe one thing that we can kind of wrap down or wind down a little bit with is that if using stuff like that kind of starts creating this criteria of what kind of person I want to date. And what's interesting is most of us go about dating with kind of really ineffective measurement tools as to how we know whether there's potential in this relationship. So like a woman might put, I'm only interested in an active priesthood holder or a temple recommend holder, or a man might put that as well. I guess he's not interested in an active priesthood holder.
But if he is, he's on the wrong website.
He's on the wrong website, right? But if you look at it and you get this idea of how do you measure whether somebody's an active priesthood holder or not, that's hard to measure.
Yeah.
How do you, having a temple recommend, what does that really mean?
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, I had a guy that asked me if, I can't remember what I asked him, but I think I asked him what his calling was. I was just trying to get an impression of what kind of a member he was, and he said, "Well, I can see if you're concerned. I can send you a picture of my temple recommend." Yeah. I have never had that offer before. It was interesting, but my first thought was, you could have a recommend and doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, people that have recommends have pornography problems. People that have recommends. And so worthy priesthood holder, active member of the church, those are kind of vague terms. Mm-hmm. But what we really know about successful relationships is they tend to be based on experience, not how long did you date, but what did you do while you were dating? What experiences have you had together? And so I remember when I would interact with women, I would regularly get the question, and I don't know if women get the same question, what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. What are you looking for? And my answer was always confusing to them, as well. Probably partly because of the work that I do, but when I would answer, I would say, well, I'm looking for braving. And I would say, I don't have deal breakers, I don't have deal makers, I'm not looking for a reason to exclude anyone. But I would rather use the science of trust. And from the work of Brene Brown, she created this acronym called BRAVING, 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 to help us look at the science of trust. And in going into relationships, this can be really helpful versus there's not really a tool to measure if someone's a worthy priesthood holder, or if they're an active member of the church, or if they attend the temple regularly.
Or if they have a testimony.
If you go to the temple once every 10 years, that's regularly, and yet how do you measure a testimony? But with braving, what you do is you take the science of trust and we can begin to look at what's present in it. So really quickly going through braving, B stands for boundaries. That means that in our interactions with each other, I can say what's okay and what's not okay, and you can say what's okay and what's not okay. The R stands for reliability, which is, do you do what you said you would do? Do you follow through? Do you keep your commitments? And do I keep mine? A stands for accountability, which is, do you take responsibility for your own life? And am I taking responsibility for my own life? V stands for the vault. That's what we do when we have to come up with an acronym and we can't say what the vault means. Is, do we keep confident the things that should be kept confident? Can I trust you to not share outside of our interactions with each other something that I share with you? I stands for integrity. My favorite definition of integrity is choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and it's actually practicing our values rather than just professing them. So we're looking for, do you actually live according to what you say? Are you actually following that? And that can even include your pictures. Do your pictures convey the values that you're professing in your profile? N stands for non-judgmental, which is, do you immediately judge me as something when you've only known me for 5 virtual minutes? Or
hey, is that like when I said you were a puppy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, you're like an enthusiastic puppy dog, right? And so it's like, but that was done in fun.
Yeah,
versus sometimes in these online dating things, we are very quick to make a judgment of somebody that's not based on any information, but just like, oh, well, that was rude of you to say. Well, maybe he just doesn't know how to type, or he's uncomfortable and struggling with the words to say. And so that gets to G, which is generosity, which is, I'm going to extend to everybody I interact with the most liberal interpretation of what their motives are and what they want. I believe that all of us are doing the best that we know how on these online sites, and we're trying the hardest we know how to convey who we are. The advantage of some relationship coaching or working with others like this podcast, which is brilliant, is get some more information, learn how to do better. You actually said you're walking away with some ideas of how you might be able to do something different. That's what we need to do. We need to figure out that. So braving is a better way of looking at, how do I have an interaction back and forth with this person? You can start that with the first online interaction or the first text interaction. Is, do they respect your boundaries? Like when I would have a woman message me and propose to me on the very first interaction, there's a problem with boundaries. Does that make sense?
Just a little.
Or when someone would say, hey, great to see you online. Here's my phone number. Text me. And if I were to respond back and say, hey, I don't really know anything about you, I'd prefer to stay here, some women would say, oh, that's fine with me, and then we would continue to message. Others, I'd never hear from them again. And so, do you respect my boundaries? Are you accountable for yourself in the interactions? Do you really want to interact with me? So basically the gist of all of this is we've got to look at what we're doing, we've got to challenge our assumptions about what we're doing, and then we're going to have to be courageous and brave and vulnerable on our profiles and in our interactions, and then we have to reality check the messages that we're telling ourselves about what's happening in these online interactions, so that we're not putting these false pressures or these false expectations when we've only known somebody for 5 virtual minutes, or we've only gone on one date or whatever. We have to look at challenging our expectations and being real about what we're actually doing. I believe that it's possible to find a mate on these dating websites in this virtual world that we live in. And I love doing this with you, Annette, because anybody that I can help to have that experience, plus I want to have that experience, it's a good thing. We need to help each other and support each other. So I'm so glad you're doing this. And if we want to come back and do another one and talk more in depth about any part of it, obviously we can do that.
Awesome. So that's great. I'm glad that we got to braving. I love Brene Brown, and I've read a lot of her stuff. And it's funny because I think we do some of this without realizing that we're doing it, but it's great to be able to put a word to it. You know, I've had a lot of interactions where right off the bat, I can see this person's not going to respect my boundaries.
Sure.
Or this person doesn't honor the whole vault thing, and you hear stuff. So it's good to be able to put some words to it. I do want to do another episode with you, if you're cool, that I want to go into the next step of, okay, maybe you've had some interactions, and how do you take it to the next level and get onto a first date?
Yeah.
And then once you've gotten to a first date, how do you get to a second date?
Sure.
And what if you get to a third date and maybe it's starting to look like a relationship? I hear rumors about these things.
They happen somewhere out there.
I hear that. I keep hearing that. And so maybe we can get into more of, kind of things that we can do to get to that point and what we do when we're there.
Yeah.
So, are you?
Well, and I would hope that people would subscribe either to your blog or comment on the Facebook. So tell us your questions. Tell us what your struggles are. And if you want to email them so that they're private, or if you feel comfortable posting them, I guarantee you there's somebody else that's having the same frustration. But then the podcast could be customized to, where are you struggling? What is happening, so that we could make this really helpful to people. So get on and follow the blog, follow the podcast, get it open, and then on Facebook or whatever, or through whatever means, send us a message.
Through AnnetteTalks.com.
There you go.
I'm trying to get everyone into this one central hub. I do get messages through Facebook, which is great, but it's much better if we can get the conversation going, especially if you want to comment right after this podcast. On the podcast, there will be a little space underneath that says comment. So come comment on there. This is where I'm going to post Jim's information. And so even if you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever, come to AnnetteTalks.com and comment.
Definitely.
And it's better if we can get a discussion going. But if you want a personal message to me because you don't want to share with everyone, you can message me at AnnetteTalks.com. Or there's a place where it says send me a message, and you can fill out your information on there.
Yeah.
Or you can reach Jim at jimrjacobs.com, or
Yes.
the phone number at 720-767-9757.
That is correct.
That's all those sevens.
Text or call me.
Yeah. And so Jim said you do a first...
The first consultation's free, so
Okay.
I'll spend an hour with you on the phone or whatever, and we can talk about what you're hoping and what you need help with, and if you want to go forward, we can do that. And if you don't want to, I won't be offended, and it'll be a good thing.
Awesome. All right, so everyone, thanks for listening. Like I said, comment on the AnnetteTalks.com website. And thank you for joining us today on whether you need a dating coach. I'm coming out of this thinking we probably all do, at least to some extent. And so thank you for joining us on LDS Unmarried Life. Oh, by the way, no affiliation with the church. I forgot to mention that earlier. This is where singles gather.
I'm gonna bloom where I'm planted. I won't take things for granted. Come what may, bring it on. I'm gonna love it.